Hello, my name is Heather Moores, and I am going to be doing a demonstration on how to do what I call a heel flap alternative. Now, I want to say a few things before I begin. Number one, I do not claim to have invented this whatsoever. This is a disclaimer. I am sure that somebody has thought of this technique long before I did, but nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and put this on video for you and show you what I do. This is for a little pattern that I wrote using this technique called heel flap alternative socks. And in this video, it's going to be in DK weight, but I intend to release it also in worsted weight and fingering. And I was considering bulky, but I'm not sure at the moment if that would work out very well. So the second thing I wanted to say is that this heel that I'm about to do, this heel flap, is not to be confused with the toe up heel flap. This is a cuff down heel flap where there is no picking up stitches for the gusset because they are knitted and prepared as you work the heel flap itself. So if you are somebody who either doesn't like to pick up stitches along the heel flap, maybe you're a little intimidated by it, you just don't like to contend with the picking up part of the gusset in a typical sock with a heel flap, or if you're a combination of all of the above, then this is why I came up with this technique for you, and I hope this will help you. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and begin this heel flap. So I am working from a sock pattern that I've written for this heel flap alternative method, and I'm going to be working in women's size extra small, or size 1 in the pattern. Now, for sizes 1, 2, and 3, or that is to say, when side 1 here has an even number of stitches, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit 2, and then I'm going to start the sequence of knit 1, slip 1, all the way down here until I reach these last 2 stitches. The pattern says how many times to repeat to have the exact stitch count, but if you don't need that, then all you have to do is really remember, if this is an even number of stitches on side 1, knit 2, and then slip 1, or excuse me, knit 1, slip 1 to the end. Now if you're working sizes 4, 5, 6, and 7, or that is to say the sizes with an odd number of stitches on side 1, or needles 1 and 2, you want to knit 1 and then knit 1, slip 1 to the last 2 stitches. So I'm going to begin here and work my way to these last 2 stitches. Get this guy out of my way. Now, my knitting style is a little animated, so I hope I'm not going to wobble too much or kind of jump around in the frame as I knit. So here we go. knit 2, knit 1, slip 1 to the end. Okay, so here we are at the last 2 stitches. And what we're going to do now that we're here is we're going to increase with this stitch and then make a short row, or in my pattern, a shadow wrap on this stitch. So the reason why we increase is to make up for the stitch that goes to the side, making this a short row stitch. So when you do a short row, you lose 1 stitch, and the increase will make up for that. I'm going to use a right lifted knit increase, but if you don't like to do lifted increases, you can make 1 here if you want. I have chosen not to do that in this case because there's already a lot going on with all the knit 1s and slip 1s, but it is your choice. Now, to do a right lifted knit increase, what you do is you take your right needle and you insert it from the back into the right leg of this stitch, lift it onto your needle without twisting it, and then you insert your needle knitwise and knit this lifted stitch and drop it off of the needle without dropping this base stitch or original stitch as well. I'm going to call this stitch here the base stitch that we're working the increase from. This is the original stitch, and this one here is the lifted stitch. So next we're going to knit the original stitch, and now the lifted increase is complete. And you should see 2 stitches here coming out of 1 base. I do want to say for this and the shadow wrap, which uses the same first steps of the right lifted knit increase, if you're having issues with your base stitch stretching when you work either a lifted increase or a shadow wrap, this applies to the same side as well, Purlwise, you might be pulling your yarn too tight because the base stitch is locked in from all sides by the time you use it to work a lifted increase. And what you're doing is you're threading your yarn through this base stitch again to make your lifted increase, and it's like attaching a little rope here, and the tighter you pull, the more this base stitch is going to stretch open. So if you're having this issue, I just recommend that you relax your yarn when doing lifted increases or shadow wraps, and you can even give your knitting just below these stitches here at the base stitch a little tug to help the base stitch relax and go back into place, because it loosens the yarn enough for the base stitch to settle back into its original size. Now, we're next going to do the shadow wrap here, knitwise. And again, this is the first same steps as the right lifted knit increase. So again, insert your right needle into the right leg from the back, and then lift it onto your left needle, and insert knitwise, knit it, drop it off. Now, do not touch the original stitch here. This is how a short row is worked here. You know how you normally find a way to attach the yarn of the other rows that you're doing here to this stitch to close any gaps. So this is our way of closing the gap with this little buddy stitch here, who will help keep this stitch up where it needs to be by the time you finish the shadow wraps later, or the double stitches. Now you want to pass your lifted stitch here back to the left needle without twisting. And this is what I mean by a double stitch. You've got the original and the lifted stitch side by side here. And now the shadow wrap is complete. If you don't want to use shadow wraps, you're welcome to use German short rows. You can try wrap and turns. I have not personally had much luck with that on this particular method, because for me it created some bulk, and the shadow wrap and German short rows seem to be a little flatter and not create a ridge that you can feel in the sock after this heel flap is done. So now let's turn this to the other side. And according to my women's extra small, I am going to purl 20 back to the last 2 stitches here. So let me do this without this guy in my way again. There. Okay. So now we're at the last 2 stitches of the first Purlwise row of the heel flap alternative. And to work the right lifted purl increase, what you're going to do, let's see which way these guys are going to go to get out of my way. What you're going to do is you're going to insert your needle, your right needle, from the bottom into the purl bump of this stitch. Lift it onto your needle without twisting. And then insert your right needle from the back into the back loop and then purl the lifted stitch through the back loop. Drop the lifted stitch off without also dropping the original stitch, and purl the original stitch. And now you've completed the right lifted purl increase. Now to do a shadow wrap purlwise, it's a little different. You are going to slip this stitch from the left needle purlwise onto your right needle. Get this yarn out of the way for you. And then you're going to insert your left needle from the bottom into the purl bump of this stitch. Go. And lift it onto your left needle. And then you purl it. And when this is done, I find it easier to just let this drop off the left needle and then pass both of these back to the left needle purlwise. And now you have a double stitch formed on the purl side. Now that we're done with the first rows here, we turn our heel flap back around. And I'm going to show you how to do these next subsequent rows after the first knit and purl rows of this heel flap alternative. Please note, this is important for your stitch count. These double stitches do not count as part of your center of heel stitch count. These are counted separately. So these stitches here at the center of the heel will always stay the same, thanks to an increase right before the short row to make up for your short row stitch that goes to the side here, to the sides of the heel flap or to the gusset. And when you work these next rows after the first double stitch on each side, here's what you do. So I'm going to knit 2, then knit 1, slip 1 to the end, because I'm doing a size with an even number of stitches on side 1, or needles 1 and 2. All right, and here we are. This is what it's going to look like when you make more double stitches after these first ones. So from row 3 of your heel flap alternative and on. When you reach the last 2 stitches in the pattern, it's going to be the last 2 stitches right before the first double stitch on your left needle. So now that I'm here, I'm going to do the lifted increase and shadow wrap again. Insert your right needle from the back into the right leg of the base stitch. Lift it onto your left needle without twisting. Insert your right needle knitwise, knit, drop it off the left needle without also dropping the original stitch. Knit the original stitch, and your lifted increase is completed. Now for the shadow wrap, insert your right needle into the right leg of the base stitch from the back. Lift it onto the left needle without twisting. Knit the lifted stitch. There we go. And don't touch the original stitch again. So pass your lifted stitch back to the left needle, and there's your next double stitch formed. And then turn the work around. And I'm going to purl my way back to the last 2 stitches before the first double stitch on my left needle. Okay, here we are, last 2 stitches before the first double stitch. So we're going to do the lifted increases here. Insert your right needle from the bottom into the purl bump of the base stitch. Lift it onto the left needle without twisting and purl it through the back loop. Drop the lifted stitch off without also dropping the original stitch. Purl the original stitch. And now we have the last stitch here for the shadow wrap purlwise. So slip it purlwise to the right needle. Insert your left needle into the purl bump from the bottom. Lift it onto your left needle and purl it. Drop it off the left needle, pass both stitches back to the left needle without twisting them. I think I will go ahead and do one more knit and purl row each of this without going through the instructions, so you can see without narration. Knit row completed. completed. So as you can see, I have more and more double stitches forming on the sides of my heel flap. So this is exactly what's supposed to happen as you work your heel flap alternative. The double stitches, again, don't count as part of the center of heel stitch count. And as you continue on, you're going to make the number of double stitches for the heel flap length that you have chosen. So I am going to knit a 2.5 inch heel, which is 12 double stitches on each side. And I will see you when my double stitches and my heel turn are complete. I am doing a quick little check-in. So far I have completed 9 double stitches on each side of my heel flap alternative. And this is what it's going to look like as you work your way up. Also, I want to note that if the stitches get a little too tight or crowded for you on 2 needles, you may transfer your double stitches, all of them or some of them, whatever you want, to some spare yarn or extra needles, or to a stitch holder. So 9 double stitches in, 3 more to go, and the heel turn. See you soon. Okay, I am back, and now I am at the gusset setup round of my pattern. So as you can see, my heel flap is all done, ready to go. The heel turn is completed, and you should have 1 or 2 stitches remaining on the outside of each gap, depending on which size you are working. Here it is again, 1 stitch. So now I'm going to just run through the gusset setup round with you real fast so that you know, so that you're assured how exactly to do this. Now, if you find that the stitch distribution of this is a little too stark for what you prefer, you may put a stitch marker at each end of the instep, and then transfer some of these stitches, these double stitches, over to needles 3 and 4, or side 2. I have added some stitch markers here so that you can see more easily when I am counting these double stitches, as I'm going to follow the instructions in my pattern. Now, before I begin, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to follow my line of instructions before I even begin knitting. And it says count the number of double stitches you have total on the sides of your of your heel flap, and then note it down or write it down. Make a note somewhere so you can check back in just a moment. So I'm going to count my double stitches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 double stitches on this side. And we're going to count again over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, I have 12 double stitches on each side of my heel flap. So now we're going to start the setup round for the gusset. Okay. Women's size extra small has just slip knit here, no one extra plain knit stitch. Slip knit. And now here we are at the double stitches. To finish double stitches, it's very simple. You just insert your needle knitwise into both the original stitch and the lifted stitch, and you knit them together. That's all you do. Insert into both stitches knitwise, knit together. Insert into both stitches knitwise, knit together. I'm going to finish the first side of my heel flap here. Come around to the other side. Okay, now I am back at the other side of this heel flap. What I'm going to do is, before I finish the double stitches, I am going to make one into the strand between this instep stitch and this first double stitch. So right here, I'm going to pick up this strand between the stitches, and I'm going to make one left with this. And I'm doing this because this will help to minimize a hole that forms on this side. The left side seems to not have any issues with this method, but the right side still will form a hole. So, let me just show you quickly. If I were to just finish needle 4 and then begin working the double stitches right away with nothing here, you see there's a big gaping hole right there, right between my heel flap and instep. So my way of minimizing the hole, if not closing it completely, is to just make one here. Here we are. So take the strand and lift it lift it onto your needle so the right leg is in front and the left leg is in the back. And then I'm going to knit this through the back loop, like so. And then I'm going to finish my last double stitches on this side of the heel. Last one, done. And then according to my stitch marker decided to ditch me, but I know where I am. I'm going to knit these two together, one stitch on each side of the gap. Knit 5. And here we go. So now all my double stitches have been worked, and I'm going to follow my instructions here again and count my double stitches. I remember here that it's 5 stitches plus this one for knit 2 together. So my instructions say count the number of stitches you have total on the sides of your heel flap again, and make sure you have the same number that you wrote or noted down, plus 1 extra stitch on the first half of side 1 or needle 1. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right. So my count is exactly as it's supposed to be here for needle 1 of these plain stitches, now in place of the double stitches that we just finished. And now I'm going to count on this side, should I say on the second half of side 2 or needle 2. This is our family cat. So let me finish here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So my count of stitches, now plain knit stitches, is the same, plus 1 extra stitch made here on needle 1, or the first half of side 1. So my stitch count is exactly as it's supposed to be in the pattern. And now the setup round for the gusset is done, and I do my usual gusset decreases and the rest of the sock. So there you go. This has been the demo for the heel flap alternative with no picking up stitches for the gusset or the sides of the heel. So here we are, this is done, and I hope my little demonstration has taught you something new and will help you if you are knitting my pattern. Bye-bye.